What's up, FH Coding here. Hope you're positive and testing negative. In this video, we're going to be learning about for loops, so let's get to it. Let's open a new file. Let's hit File, Save As. Let's change the name to for loops and change the type to a Python file. Let's press Save. Alright, so now let's get started. A for loop is kind of like a while loop, but it's a little different and it has some special functions. A for loop can also be used for iterating over a sequence, like a list. So let's try that out. So let's create a list called numbers 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 8. Alright. And now we can do for x in numbers print x. We don't have to name it x. X is just a variable. So I mean, we can do number for number in numbers print number. And what this is basically doing is it's running over this list. When it encounters something, it will store that in number and then it's gonna print it out. And Python isn't like other languages where if you're like looping over a list and you want to print out its items, you don't have to manually index it because a list isn't iterable. Alright, so now let's run this. And we get 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 8. Exactly the contents of our list. And we can also do this with strings because strings are also iterables. So let's just do name equals Joanna, and we can just change this to name. I mean, we could leave this as number, but it really doesn't make sense. And we just want our code to be easy to read, so we can just do for character in name print character. And again, you could call this anything you want. You could even call this for calculators in name print calculator, and it would do the exact same thing, but I'm just putting in something that makes sense. So let's run this now, and we get Joanna, and it's printing out the individual characters. And like the while loop, the for loop has the break statement. So we can do this. Let me just delete this. Alright, so let's do numbers equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we can do for number in numbers print number, and then we can do if number equals 2 break. And also notice the two equal signs like before. The double equals are always used in comparison. That's just a reminder. So let's run this, and we get 1, 2 as our output. Like the while loop, the for loop also has the continue statement. So we could just remove this. We can remove the break statement, and we could put in the continue statement. And just a quick refresher, continue skips the current iteration of the loop and goes on to the next iteration, and break just exits the loop. Alright, so let's run this, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you might be asking me, shouldn't we have had 1, 3, 4, 5? Yes, but we're printing out number before we check. So if we just remove this and we do print number, so let's run this, and we'll get 1, 3, 4, 5. So you always want to remember the positioning. And we're just looping over iterables right now. But what if we wanted to do something else? Let's set a variable named I, and we'll set this to 0. Alright, and now we can do this for I in range 10 print I. And you might be saying, whoa, hold on, what's going on here? What's all of this? So basically, all this is the range function. The range function is a huge part of for loops. For example, in Java, you would do for I equals 1, I is less than 10, I plus plus. So the range function basically does these two parts of the for loop. We have to set the initialization ourselves, but the range function does these two parts. So the range function is an extremely important part of for loops. So alright, so let's run this. And we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And range ends at this number. It does not check for this number. If you wanted to check for 10, you would have to change range to 11. Let's say I got a little lazy and I didn't want to initialize this. Well, I could just do this. I could do 0, comma 10. And basically what this does is it sets I to 0, and the 10 serves the same purpose as it did before. So if we run this again, we'll get the same output. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's just another way of doing it. What if you wanted it to print out all even numbers? One way to do this would be to put an if statement inside the code that just checks it, but the range statement also has another part to it which specifies the step. So I can do 2, and that's just going to increment it by 2. So let's run this and we get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So the range function does a lot of things for us. For loops can also have else statements. Let me just remove this and I'll set it back to 10 like it was usually. A for loop can also have an else statement. It's a lot like a while loop and an if statement in some ways. So we can do else print we are finally done. So now let's run this and we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're finally done. And the 0 is just here. It's just being hidden. So I'm just going to enlarge the terminal. And let me just scroll up a little. Also, like if statements, you can nest a for loop. So we can do this. Let me just delete this. And now I'm going to create two lists. I'll call this list 1. And I'll set this to cheesy, juicy, and exquisite. And I'll create another list 2, and I'll set this as pizza, apple, cookie. Let's do for adjective in list 1, and then we can do for food in list 2, print adjective, comma, food. We get cheesy pizza, cheesy apple, cheesy cookie, juicy pizza, juicy apple, and juicy cookie, exquisite pizza, exquisite apple, and exquisite cookie. Alright, and now let's see why. So over here, it's for adjective in list 1. So we have, so it's at the first, so it's at the 0, so it's at index 0 over here. So for adjective in list 1, that's basically saying for the first item in list 1, then it continues and it says for these items in list 2, print out the adjective and the name of the food. And this loop is going to finish, adjective is going to go to juicy, and then this loop is going to finish and we'll get pizza, apple, cookie. And then adjective is going to go to exquisite, and then we're going to get pizza, apple, cookie. And that's basically it. And like if statements, for loops can't be empty, but if for some reason you have a for loop without anything in it, you can just put in the pass statement to avoid an error. So you can just do, instead of this, you can just do pass. And now let's run this, and we're going to get no output. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, share it with your friend, leave a comment down below. Peace.